So we are officially now in the final week of unemployment, or maybe it has actually already happened if you were watching this into the future, as crazy as to really think, although most people probably are. But the big thing right now is that there are now a lot of states that have now officially come out to speak about what they're currently planning to do, or actually in many cases, sadly, what they're not going to be doing, because there are states that have now, of course, recently come out to announce that they are no longer going to be continuing the unemployment program and essentially just confirming it. For example, I do know that in the state of New Jersey, they recently did just confirm is that they will no longer be trying to continue the unemployment anymore after Labor Day, or just simply put into the future if you are already watching this into the future. If you have any particular information from your particular state, feel free to share them as well, because the other big thing is that there are actually also a lot of states that, even though I do know is that the time is obviously getting really tight and there's obviously a very huge time crunch, there's a lot of states that actually haven't really released any particular information, so it's still a huge mystery to what they currently plan to do. But the big thing really is that in today's update, I really just want to talk about what's currently going to be happening in the states that we do have information from, and then also maybe touching up and clarifying certain details about what to actually specifically expect about what's going to happen when the unemployment lapses in the following week. Because keep in mind is that there are still some people that may be continuing, and there may be, obviously most people are probably going to be ending, but there are still going to be a couple people on select programs that may be able to still continue unemployment. Of course, we kind of already talked all about the different kinds of programs, what's ending, what's continuing in a previous video. I believe the name of that video is literally just called "What Programs Will Continue Unemployment Ending." So also put it at the end screen if you guys haven't checked it out. I know most people have already checked it out, but just in case, because today is really just going to clarify even more details about that. So as always, baby, real fast, before we begin, consider smashing the like button, because it is always greatly appreciated to help share support. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell for similar videos like this if you guys are interested. Of course, you guys can decide. And as always, feel free to comment any questions, thoughts about honestly just really anything at all. And also just a really huge thanks to every single person, especially if you guys have been here for a while now, because it is really crazy to think that we have gotten this far. The fact that we are now in the brand new month of September, the fact that this thing has been going on for basically almost about a year and a half now. So if you guys have stood around for that long, really huge thanks, because it is always really genuinely greatly appreciated. And so with that being said, let's get this video started. When it comes to the new unemployment benefits extension, the big thing I really want to clarify that we kind of talked about in one of the last videos called "What Programs Will Continue," but to hopefully really specify is that when it comes to all of the different programs, essentially almost every single unemployment program that is related to the pandemic, so the FPUC, PUA, PAUC, will sadly be ending. The only programs that will really be continuing is pretty much going to be the traditional UI unemployment, or the Fed Ed / EB, if the keyword is if you are from a state that is still doing it, because the story is that that one is going to vary a lot more across different states, and many states actually will sadly be ending the Fed Ed and EB as well. So hopefully that kind of clarifies it, because there is a little bit of variation. For example, I do know if you happen to be in California, they are giving a little bit of extra time if you happen to be on the Fed Ed, so they actually will be continuing after this week, but really only for one more week, ending specifically, I believe they're hoping to now end it around September 11th. So essentially you guys get another one more week, so maybe a little bit nicer there. But the big thing is that it is pretty much going to be a very big month for a lot of the different things. Now, one way is that if you happen to be a little bit confused about whether you're on the traditional or the PEUC, the big thing is that the PEUC unemployment is essentially just an extension of the traditional unemployment. In most states, more or less, the traditional unemployment is really only intended to last about 26 weeks or less. So what this basically means is that if you are someone that has been on unemployment for more than 26 weeks now, and you're on the traditional unemployment, of course, then it probably means that you are indeed on the PEUC, and so that program sadly is one of the programs that will be ending. However, if you happen to be on the traditional UI and it has not been 26 weeks, or just simply put is that when you log into your account, If you still see available weeks, available balances remaining, then it means that the great news is that you should be set. Of course, it is a little bit of a sigh because it does mean that you will be getting $300 less, but at least you guys will still be able to have some value or some amount of money coming in afterwards. Now, if none of these things apply for you, then the very likely is that you probably will have to consider reapplying if you are even able to actually physically reapply, because of course that part now is probably another whole different story. But I hope that maybe hopefully clarifies about what's going on with the programs, about which program you probably will be on, because it is something we kind of didn't fully clarify in the last video, so hopefully it makes a lot more sense now. So I know it's obviously going to be a very big week. I believe is that they were estimating that probably about like 9 to 12 million people are going to be losing unemployment in some way, shape, or form. So if you happen to be part of, well, I think a lot of us will probably be part of that number of people, then just know is that there's a lot of people with us. If anything, we are talking about probably millions and millions of people. That it's estimated that about 9 million people will be losing unemployment in its entirety by the end of this weekend, and about 3 million people will be losing it, but only partially. But nonetheless, it's going to be a pretty significant impact. I think they said specifically the breakdown is that about 4.2 million are going to be losing it because they are on the PUA, 3.3 million are on the PEUC, so about 7.5 million people will be losing it on those programs, and then the other several million people are pretty much going to be losing it from a lot of the other programs. So examples of that would pretty much be like the FedEd, the EB, and basically if there is any particular scale needed for comparison, I believe is that throughout this entire huge pandemic that has gone on for basically about a year and a half now, crazy as it is, at least in America, because it did start outside of the country, but it's been in America for probably about a year and a half now. I believe they said that during this time period, we probably had about 40-50 million people that were unemployed at some time throughout this entire pandemic, and this does not include people that were unemployed but struggled to get onto the unemployment programs to begin with, so we're never able to actually physically get counted into that number. So today, I believe we still stand in a situation where about 10 million people are on some kind of unemployment program of some kind. So it is still obviously a very big thing that is going on. Obviously it's improving, so that's the big thing, but it is still a very big situation that's going on inside of our country. I do know also maybe another thing that is going to be ending, just to throw it out there, is sadly actually the eviction moratorium is also going to be ending. So this is the part that was a little bit more interesting, is that because originally what was originally on the plan or the schedule was that they were going to extend the eviction moratorium until pretty much around the beginning of October. I believe the specific date was October 3rd, 2021. What really ended up happening is that there were a lot of lawsuits that popped up to try to remove the eviction moratorium. I believe it was because of a lot of the landlords that were complaining that they were not able to receive rent. So because of that reason, they tried to sue the program because they wanted to take it away because they felt that people were going to abuse the program and never pay rent. So sadly, what ended up happening, well, I guess it depends on whether you are the landlord or whether you are the renter. But for a lot of people, sadly, the story is that because of what had happened, they ended up ruling by the Supreme Court that they had to take away the eviction moratorium on the federal level. So because of that reason, that is also going to be ending, or maybe even already ended by the time that you are watching this video. And within that eviction moratorium is that there's two kinds of moratoriums. One happens to be on the federal level, one happens to be on the state level. It is believed that now that it's been stripped away on the federal level for a lot of different people, is that it's probably going to be taken away on the state level as well. So not only is unemployment something that's of course going to end, as most people know, but also a lot of the eviction moratoriums, the basically just a whole bunch of other programs. This really will be the very big epic month. Of course, there are still other programs that may continue, you know, for example, like the food stamp bumps, child tax credit, so, and then select people on traditional unemployment programs. But but obviously it is going to be a pretty big month, and I think that's the really big thing to take in. Now, in terms of which states have officially come out, this is really just a general list of certain states that have already officially confirmed that they sadly will no longer be continuing unemployment. If you need someone to just read the general states or the general idea, is really that if you happen to be from a state that has officially already ended unemployment, which is pretty much sadly most red states, because there are a couple red states that thankfully have actually managed to win their lawsuit back, for example like Indiana, in Maryland. But the big thing is that if you happen to be from a red state, then it probably means that your unemployment, which sadly has already ended, will probably still stay very much like that. The big thing though is that it is very, very likely that your state may have a lawsuit that's still going on, whether it's the actual complete lawsuit or the actual appeal to a particular decision within your lawsuit. So that part we really just have to wait for more information. I did already make a couple videos about that, so definitely consider subscribing if you guys haven't done so. Huge thanks if you guys have been following along. Feel free to share information, and also put a video at the end screen that talks about where the lawsuit stands. I believe the last lawsuit currently stands at about 15 states, so that should be the name of that video. But the big thing really to notice is that if you are essentially from a red state of some kind, then it probably means that it's been confirmed that it probably will very much now be truly ending in its entirety in those particular states. And then there's a lot of other blue states that have also relatively came out with information recently. For example, like New Jersey, I believe confirmed that they will no longer be continuing it. I believe California also confirmed that they will no longer be continuing it. The big thing I believe is that California will still be doing their Fed Ed program, but only for another about 1 or 2 weeks from when I'm making this video. So essentially what that means is that you guys do get it a little bit longer, but of course, there's probably more that most of us would have hoped for than what currently is. But outside of that, the true answer is that most states to this day have still actually been relatively quiet. So even though I do know is obviously the expiration and the deadline and the date is coming up very, very soon, the idea is that a lot of states can and probably will be able to announce information honestly at really just any time. It is very possible that they may even announce information after it has already lapsed, but of course this is something that we're really just waiting to kind of confirm to know for sure. But essentially, hopefully that clarified a lot of the details about what's been going on with unemployment and what to physically expect with unemployment.